Guys, welcome back to another video, and in this video we're going to be continuing on with our iOS development with UIKit tutorial series. And in this particular tutorial we are going to be taking a look at how we can add tabs to a tab bar controller using the newer API for this introduced in iOS 18. Now in iOS 18, we got several new features for tab views, and that is we can now customize our tab bars a little bit more. Tab bars on iPadOS now float at the top of your app instead of the bottom, and you can set a specific mode that will allow for the user to switch between sidebar and tab bar mode for your tab view controller. Pretty cool. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we can construct a UITabBarController using UITabs as opposed to view controllers. So first things first, a UITab contains a title, an image, and an identifier, as well as a view controller provider. This view controller provider will tell the tab what view controller it needs to display when it's selected. So to do this, we will go into Xcode and say let's say home tab equals UITab, and we want a title, and it'll be home. Image, we want this to be a UI image with a system name. And the symbol will be house. Generally, in a UI tab, when you specify an image with an SF symbol, you should use the outline variant and let the system determine, oh, we want to use the fill here, so let's use the fill variant. So generally, you're going to want the system to do that for you. And then third, we need an identifier. And this will be a string. Let's call it home_tab. Like that. And then the last parameter is a closure that takes in a UI tab. And this UI tab is the tab that the view controller provider is associated with, and because it is the last parameter of our initializer, we can just have a trailing closure. So we will say left curly brace underscore in. And I will open that up. And what we want to return here is any kind of UI view controller. So if it's a tab bar controller, then you can do that. If it's a navigation controller, you can do that, all that sort of stuff. What I want to do here is I want to return main nav VC, which is the navigation controller that holds our main view controller. All right. And that is our tab. The last thing that we need to do is we will say let tab controller equals UITabBarController. And you could leave this initializer empty like this, and then say tab controller dot set tab. Right, so set tabs. And this will take in an array of tabs. We'll say home tab. And whether or not we want it to be animated, we'll just say true. And that'll work fine. But you could also pass the tabs directly into the initializer. And we'll pass home tab in like that. And that works as well. In fact, I usually use this method instead of the previous one because then I have less code. So we can run this. Let it run. And here's our application with our tab bar controller. So in the toolbar of our application, we have our tab that says home. VoiceOver by default interprets it as a radio button. Now, how do you change the mode of your tab bar controller? Maybe you want to change it to something else. Well, you can say tab controller dot mode equals dot, and then you can see all the new tab bar controller modes that we have in iOS 18. The first is automatic. Now, automatic basically allows the system to determine what mode to use based on the context being used. Tab bar basically says use a tab bar and nothing else. Tab sidebar is the mode that you would use if you want to allow the user to flip between sidebar and tab bar mode on the iPad. Now, let's say tab sidebar, and we'll see what happens here. So save that, run the code. All right. All right, so here we are. And so you can see things are a little bit different. For example, on Mac, in Mac Catalyst, it'll use the sidebar. All right, so that's what that looks like here. Let's take a look at tab bar here. We'll say dot tab bar, save and run. We have a successful build. And tab bar is the default style for Mac Catalyst and for iOS, as well as iOS. So that just renders the tab bar as necessary, depending on what platform you're using. Now let's run this in the simulator so you can see what it looks like. So I'm going to go to my run destinations. let's run this. Let's see. Let's run this. Let's run this on the 16 Pro Max. So we'll run this. And we got to let it kind of build and run. Now the simulator has to run and do its thing. So we can see that it is booting. All right, give it a second. I know this takes a little while. The simulator takes forever to load. All right, it's almost done. It's almost done. But we can see here that we do now have our tab bar down there at the bottom of our screen. Now, if this was on the iPad, the tab bar would be floating at the top rather than the bottom. Okay. So, there it is. Okay. So, you can see, again, our tab down there at the bottom. It's selected and everything is fine. All right, so that pretty much does it for how we can add tabs to a tab bar controller in UIKit using new APIs built into iOS 18, introduced this year at WWDC. Thank you all so very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.